Top 3 funny Reddit stories.
Number 1.
My friend was sleeping over at my house. My parents and brother were all sleeping upstairs while we were downstairs watching TV, playing video games and shit. At around 1 AM, he asks if this girl can come over. He really wants to get with this girl, and I don't want to turn him down, so I reluctantly agreed, on the conditions that she's quiet. The three of us are hanging out, and I make some excuse to leave the room so my friend can have some alone time with his girl. I'm upstairs in my room when I start hearing loud moans. This is bad news for me, but great news for my friend. He's losing his virginity to a girl he really likes. I hear stirring in the next room, and I know that their bout of loud lovemaking has awoken my parents. The last thing I want is for my confused father to walk in on my friend fucking this girl in my basement. What do I do? I go to Pornhub, click on the first video I see, crank that shit up to 100 on my speakers, and let it play for the 3 minutes that my buddy ended up lasting. My dad ended up coming into my room, discovering the source of the noise. I even threw in some flapping motions under the covers, awkwardly leaving. My buddy ended up having the best fucking time of his life. But Jesus, there were some awkward glances exchanged between my parents and I the next morning.
Number 2.
One day in college, the teacher had stapled answer sheets to the back of every test by mistake. A few minutes after passing the test around, his phone rang and he stepped out. Everyone had noticed the answer sheet, and we decided that we would all use it and tear it off after. Hopefully he would never notice, so I checked each of the answers and they were all correct except for the last one. We were to draw a flow chart for a process. I checked the answer sheet. Answers will vary. I drew my flow chart, tore off the answer sheet, walked to the front podium to turn in the test in. When I got to the podium, I needed to see what everyone else had drawn for their flow chart. Answers will vary. Everyone had written that on their test. I don't remember what the teacher did about it.
Number 3.
If I decided to stare, it's usually with a, "Yeah, what the fuck are you gonna do about it?" look. I'm about 6'7", so even when I'm trying to be friendly, i.e. not farting on a stranger's kid's head, and meeting a family member or friend's kid, or for the first time, I've noticed they get very hide between their mother's legs, intimidated on sight if I'm not sitting down. So it's not hard for me to intimidate a child, especially when I'm trying to. However, a few times I've been called out. One time, I was pretty drunk with a friend at a Target buying Risk, and no, we never finished playing the whole game. This little Mexican 5-7-year-old with a mohawk was being an insufferable little shit in the action figure section. I heard him from 5 aisles away, and it was like nails on a chalkboard. I tell my friend I'm gonna fart on this kid's head. Watch and learn. I saunter on over to the aisles in question and see the vile little prick calling his mom an idiot for not buying him a huge fucking G.I. Joe, the movie vehicle, which pissed me off even more considering how awful that movie was. Buy some good toys. I already bought that one for you, and you broke it by throwing it down the stairs.
Shut up! I need it! It's the only one I don't have now!
The mother was younger than me. I'm mid-20s and gave a defeated look. I don't have enough money right now.
You're an idiot!
And continued to just berate and publicly shame this woman. At the time, I was on a strict Chipotle carnitas burrito diet, and while I was watching all this, my stomach gave me an initial warning gurgle. Very courteous stomach, telling me I was about an hour away from punishing the toilet. I inch a bit closer to my prey, inspecting some wrestling toys and pondering the weird homoeroticness of the whole sport in general. The kid shouts, "Fuck you, I hate you!" The mom rolls her eyes and turns her back to the kid to ignore him. And could you believe it? The kid gets on his hands and knees and starts taking the toy out of the box. It's go time, motherfucker. I position my back towards him, and at this point, I'm like 2 feet away from him. His head is down, getting frustrated with those goddamn twisty tie things. And I go for the kill. I bend down to reach for one of the toys on the lower shelf. At this point, my ass is inches away from the kid's head. Now, generally speaking, the best way to go about this is to act casual. Drop your belly bomb, then walk away after a few seconds, like nothing is out of the ordinary. I usually go one aisle over and listen to the kid's reaction and delight. However, I couldn't help myself. I have my head titled back, looking at this kid out of the corner of my eye to ensure accuracy. I'm so close that from a distance it looks like I'm about to sit on him. My friend sees this happening and can no longer contain himself. He's covering his mouth, but his hee-haw, hyperventilating donkey chortle is fairly audible over the late 90s pop music playing on the loudspeakers. The kid immediately looks up toward the laughter, but can't help but notice there is an ass now directly in his face. Now, I'm trying not to laugh, but also panicking as I made eye contact with him. He furrows his brow, and I look over in the mother's direction, still towards us. I relish in the moment and look on this kid's confused and naive face. The initial blast was mighty and boisterous. I swear, I saw his hair blowing in the wind, so to speak. If I wasn't wearing jeans, I think it could have probably blown over an empty soda can. I would call it a very fun fart. A++ would buy again. However, what immediately followed that out the chamber was truly horrifying. The fart's implication changed without notice and swiftly. It went from a joyous dry air horn squeal to a nefarious hissing memphitis. I think the little Muppet noticed the hateful metamorphosis before I even did, because he wrenched his neck, violently trying to get away from the personified evil being fumigated into his soul because of the positioning hovering over the toy's hands and knee. It was all in vain, as the only way out was forward, and forward would mean certain death. I had positioned myself well on the higher ground, free to escape or relent at any time, and him biding his time until the cruel attack was over. Obviously, this child needed to reread Sun Tzu. In total, it lasted about 4 seconds, but for that kid, it must have seemed like time was frozen. The long-term severe brain damage, which he no doubt suffered, only added to the effect. When I finished with my business, forcing a little boy to huff my farts, there was a silent, pregnant pause. The kid was clearly shocked and stunned. No one had ever stood up to this little... Wait, no one has ever stood up to this dwarf sociopath in his whole life. I had taken the words out of his mouth and filled it with farts. I make my move first, picking up the toy I was reaching for off the low shelf. Take a few steps forward and stare at it for a few seconds. On to alligator, the only thing the kid could manage to do was burst into tears. My friend senses danger, the jig is up, and his head darts for cover. The mom turns around to see her kid with an open toy crying on the floor, and me minding my own business. She walks up to him and asks what's wrong, but the kid can't speak. All he gets out is it took every fiber in my body not to laugh. I put the toy back on a middle shelf, turn around, give a final nonchalant look-see, and then begin to make my exit. Sensing that his assailant was getting away scot-free, he somehow managed to compose himself for a moment. He shouts, "He farted on me!" I could feel him pointing at me, but I continued to act like I was just browsing. I was almost around the corner when the mom goes, "Excuse me, sir?" "Sir!" I turn around, non-pulse. "Huh? Who? Me?" While pointing to myself. "Yes! Did you just fart on my son?" Weighing my options, I played dumb. What? I mean, I did fart? On my son. Well, I mean, technically speaking, I mean, what is on? Why did you fart on my son? At this point, the little kid has the look of Schadenfreude on his face, happy to see me in trouble. Fuck you! I'm a man! I will fart on you if I please! I turn my attention to the little kid and stare at him, because the whole store could hear me. Because the whole store could hear him being a little rotten asshole to his mother. So I thought I'd come over and treat him like one. The mom looks at me, her son, and the scattered G.I. Joe / wrappers / box on the floor. The mom is puzzled as to what to do and says, Just go. That's my cue. I turn around, walk away with the little extra step. I look up to see the black orb of security cameras and all the stories on Reddit about unjustly having to register as a sex offender flash before my eyes. As soon as I turn the corner, I book it outside as fast as I can, while dialing my friend. Like a true friend, he's right out in the front with the engine running and Risk in the trunk. We laugh on the car ride back about the whole scene. With a slight hint of seriousness in his tone, my friend asks me, "Do you do that a lot?" Not that much, like once every 6 months or so. We both knew I was lying. We got to our other friend's house, played Risk until 4 in the morning while drinking scotch. Overall, I would say it was a pretty good day.